The first thing Elira knew was the cold. Not the sharp bite of winter wind that stung exposed skin, but the deeper cold, the kind that lived beneath flesh and muscle, coiled around bone like a parasite. It was the cold of blood leaving the body too fast, of hope draining into snow-covered ground. The cold of watching the people sworn to protect you turn their backs and walk away. She pressed her palm against the frost-covered stone steps, her ruined leg stretched out before her like an accusation. The bandages Lena had wrapped 3 days ago were soaked through again, dark stains spreading across the linen. 23. The number sat heavy in her chest, a stone she couldn't swallow. 23 years old, and she'd already learned the most important lesson life had to teach: everyone leaves. The strong survive. The broken get left behind. Her mother used to sing on winter mornings, filling their small cabin with warmth that had nothing to do with the fire. Her father's laugh had been thunder rolling across summer fields, protective, powerful, permanent. Her younger brother Finn had believed in heroes, had looked at Elira like she was invincible. Then the rogues came, and the singing stopped. The laughter died. The belief shattered into pieces too small to ever fit back together. The attack had taken them 3 weeks ago. 3 weeks that felt like 3 lifetimes. She could still smell the copper tang of blood, still feel her father pushing her behind him one last moment before the claws found his throat. Still hear her mother's scream cut short. Still see Finn's eyes, so wide, so confused, as the life left them. She'd fought. Gods, she'd fought like a demon, taking down 2 rogues before the third caught her leg, his jaws crushing bone and tendon with a sound like branches snapping. She'd bought the pack time. Bought the children time to reach the safe houses. Bought her own death with that sacrifice, though she'd been too stubborn to die quickly. The pack had carried her back, and for one foolish moment, she'd thought it meant something. That survival counted. That sacrifice mattered. Elder Thorn had looked at her ruined leg with the same expression he'd give spoiled meat. The weak cannot be carried. The broken must be left behind. His voice had been so matter-of-fact, so devoid of compassion, that she almost hadn't understood at first. Then they'd brought her here. To the edge of Silver Moon territory. To these ancient stone steps that led nowhere, ringed by trees that whispered with the voices of the abandoned. They'd left her with water enough for 2 days and the threadbare blanket from her childhood bed. A mercy, they'd called it. A chance to die with dignity. She'd learned then that depending on anyone, on pack, on family, on the bonds that were supposed to be unbreakable, was the cruelest joke fate could play. So she'd stopped depending. She'd crawled to her cabin through sheer spite, inch by agonizing inch, leaving a trail of blood that the snow mercifully covered. She'd survived on rainwater and the dried meat Lena smuggled to her. She'd built her life in the negative space between pack and exile, existing in the margins they'd written her into. Her cabin was her fortress now. 1 room, drafty and dark, but hers. The scent of pine and damp earth had replaced pack warmth and communal fires. She worked when her leg allowed, mending clothes, preparing herbs, small tasks that kept her hands busy and her mind quiet. She avoided the pack house where laughter and belonging happened to people who weren't broken. She avoided the training grounds where warriors moved with the grace she'd lost. She avoided the Alpha's residence most of all. Most of all, she avoided him. The sharp rap on her door made her flinch, pain lancing up from her ruined leg. She'd been staring at the frost patterns on her window for who knew how long, lost in the grey space between memory and present. Elira, I know you're awake. Don't make me break this door down. Lena's voice carried that particular mix of affection and exasperation that meant she wasn't leaving until she got what she wanted. Elira reached for her crutch, a rough carved thing that dug splinters into her palm, and hauled herself upright. Each movement was negotiation with pain, a careful dance of pressure and balance. She'd gotten better at it. Practice, she'd learned, was just another word for suffering repeatedly. She opened the door to sunshine incarnate. Lena stood there with wind-tossed blonde hair and eyes that saw too much, holding something wrapped in cloth. You look terrible, Lena announced, pushing past her into the cabin. Good morning to you too. Elira closed the door, shutting out the cold. It's past noon. And before you get all hermit-like on me, Lena unwrapped the cloth, revealing a small honey cake with a single candle. Happy birthday. The words landed like a punch. Elira had forgotten. Had deliberately not counted. But Lena, impossible Lena, had remembered. Lena. Don't Don't do the thing where you pretend it doesn't matter. You're 23 today. That matters. Lena's smile faltered. And there's something else. The Alpha is holding a celebration tonight. Pack gathering. Mandatory attendance. The air left Elira's lungs. No. It's not optional. Elder Thorn sent runners to everyone. Even you. Lena's voice softened. It's Ronan's coronation celebration. 1 month since he took the Alpha oath. Of course. Of course it was his day too. The universe had always had a talent for cruel poetry. Ronan Silvermane, who'd stood silent while the council condemned her. Ronan, who'd watched them carry her away without a word. Ronan, whose ice-blue eyes had met hers for one terrible moment before he turned away. She remembered another celebration, years ago. Before the attack. Before the breaking. She'd been young and stupidly hopeful, had thought maybe the Alpha's son saw her as more than Pack. She'd approached him, and he'd looked at her with those same cold eyes. She couldn't remember his exact words, her mind had mercifully blurred them, but she remembered the meaning. You're nothing. You're no one. The laughter from his friends had followed her for weeks. I'm not going, Elira said, her voice flat. Elira. I'm not going to watch them celebrate while I can barely stand. I'm not going to smile while they pretend they didn't leave me to die. And I'm sure as hell not going to, her voice cracked. She swallowed hard. I can't, Lena. Lena grabbed her hands. You're the strongest person I know. Not despite what happened to you. Because of it. You survived what should have killed you. That's not weakness. Then why did they leave me? The question came out small, broken. If I'm so strong, why wasn't I worth saving? Lena's eyes shimmered. Because they are fools. Because they measure strength in claws and speed and forget that survival is its own kind of power. She squeezed Elira's hands. Please. Come for 1 hour. Let them see you're still here. Let him see what his silence cost. Elira looked at her friend's pleading face. At the honey cake with its single hopeful flame. At the door that led back to the pack that had discarded her. It was a choice between two kinds of pain, the familiar ache of isolation, or the raw wound of facing them all. She chose the wound that would hurt only herself. 1 hour, she whispered. Then I leave. Lena's smile bloomed like spring after endless winter. 1 hour. I'll stay right beside you. I promise. As Lena chatted about what to wear, Elira felt the old dread crawling up her spine. She wasn't just going to a celebration. She was walking back into the den of wolves who'd already torn her apart once. And somewhere in the gathering dark, fate was sharpening its teeth, preparing to prove that some wounds never heal, they just wait for the perfect moment to tear open again. 3 nights after the council's judgment, Ronan stood at the edge of the forest where Silver Moon territory bled into wilderness. A thin ribbon of smoke rose from deep within the pines, Elira's cabin, still burning its meager fire. Still alive, then. The thought shouldn't have brought relief, but it did. Let her die with dignity, Alpha. Gareth's voice came from behind him, measured and cold. His beater had a talent for making cruelty sound like wisdom. Prolonging this helps no one. Ronan didn't turn. Dignity. Is that what we're calling it now? Ancient law is ancient law. The marked for death cannot be saved. You know this. Gareth moved to stand beside him, arms crossed. Your father understood. The pack survives through hard choices. My father. The words still felt like swallowing glass. 4 weeks since the challenge that had ended with his father's throat torn out by a rogue Alpha. 4 weeks since Ronan had taken the oath with his father's blood still wet on the ceremonial stones. 4 weeks of discovering that the crown he'd inherited came with chains. The council is watching you, Gareth continued. Especially Elder Thorn. They need to know you're strong enough to lead. That you won't let sentiment weaken the pack. Sentiment. Such a small word for the howling thing in Ronan's chest. His wolf, Kale, had been clawing at his inside since they'd carried Elira away. Go to her. Protect her. She's ours to guard. Ronan had spent 3 days fighting his own instincts, and he was losing. He'd watched her train years ago, before the attack. Watched her take down opponents twice her size through sheer determination. She'd never quit, never backed down, even when she should have. He'd seen that fire in her eyes and had been drawn to it like a moth to flame. But protocol demanded distance. The Alpha's son didn't mix with common pack members. His father had made that crystal clear. So he'd kept his distance. Built walls. Said nothing when his friends mocked her. Done everything right, everything expected. And it had all been for nothing. Because now she was dying alone in the woods, and every instinct he possessed screamed that this was wrong. The celebration is tonight, Gareth said. The pack needs to see their Alpha. Strong. Certain. Uncorrupted by. Get out of my sight. Ronan's voice was quiet, but Gareth went still. Alpha. Now. Gareth left, his displeasure radiating like heat. Ronan waited until his footsteps faded before allowing himself to breathe. His wolf surged forward, demanding action. She saved the children. She fought when others fled. And we repay her with abandonment? The pack house buzzed with preparations when Ronan returned. His coronation celebration, a month-late formality that Elder Thorn had insisted upon. The pack needs stability, the old man had said. They need to see you embrace your role. Ronan had wanted to refuse. Celebrating while Elira slowly died felt obscene. But refusal would be seen as weakness, and he couldn't afford weakness. Not now. Not with half the council questioning whether he was truly Alpha material. The great hall filled as evening fell. Wolves from every corner of Silver Moon territory, their faces bright with forced cheer. Ronan stood at the head table, accepting congratulations that felt like mockery. Every smile was a test. Every pledge of loyalty came with unspoken conditions. Gareth appeared at his elbow during the feast. The girl's friend arrived. Lena. She brought someone. Ronan's attention sharpened. Elira. Tucked in the corner like a ghost. Thought you should know. Gareth's smirk was subtle. In case you wanted to avoid any complications. Ronan's hand tightened around his cup hard enough that the wood creaked. Through the crowd, he caught a glimpse of her. Pale as death, leaning heavily on a crutch, her eyes downcast. She looked like she was barely holding herself together. Their eyes met across the chaos. The world narrowed. Everything else, the noise, the crowd, the expectations, fell away. Just her. Just those eyes that had haunted his dreams for years, now filled with something that looked like despair. Then she looked away, and the moment shattered. Ronan moved through the rest of the celebration on autopilot. Accepting toasts. Making the appropriate responses. All while his wolf raged against the cage of duty and tradition. When Elder Thorn rose to speak about strength and sacrifice, about the hard choices that made packs great, Ronan tasted bile. Elira left before the speeches ended. He watched her limp toward the door, watched Lena support her, and felt something inside him crack. The celebration ended near midnight. Ronan retreated to his chambers, but sleep was impossible. Kale paced inside his mind, restless and furious. She's dying. While we feast, she's dying. At dawn, Ronan made his choice. He found Gareth in the training yard, running drills with the young warriors. His beater's eyes narrowed when he saw Ronan's expression. Call a council meeting, Ronan said. Immediately. Within the hour, the council had assembled. 7 faces, some curious, some hostile, all wondering what their new Alpha wanted badly enough to summon them at dawn. Elder Thorn spoke first. This is irregular, Alpha. I'm invoking the right of protection, Ronan said. No preamble. No explanation. Silence crashed through the room. Gareth recovered first. The right of protection hasn't been invoked in 3 generations. You can't be serious. I'm invoking it for Elira of the White Paw line. She is under my shield until her fate is determined by proper trial. She's already been judged, Elder Thorn said, his voice sharp with warning. By this very council. The laws regarding the marked for death are absolute. Then try her properly. With evidence. With defense. Not summary execution disguised as mercy. You would bind yourself to her. One of the younger council members, Myra, leaned forward. The right of protection links the Alpha's life to the protected. If she dies under your shield, your claim is forfeit. I know the law. Then you know this is madness, Gareth said. She's already half dead. The wound is infected. Even if we bring her back, she'll die within days, and you'll have sacrificed your position for nothing. Bring her back anyway, Elder Thorn stood slowly. You defy the council's judgment. You invoke an archaic right to overturn our decision. And you risk your alpha claim for a crippled girl who offers nothing to this pack. His eyes glittered with something cold. Your father would be ashamed. Ronan met his gaze and didn't flinch. My father let tradition make his choices. I'll make my own. Then you accept the consequences, Elder Thorn said. The right of protection is binding. Her death is your death, politically, if not literally. The pack will not forgive this weakness. Let them judge me when she's had a fair trial. Ronan turned to leave, then paused. An Elder Thorn? If I discover this council's judgment was made in bad faith, there will be a reckoning. He didn't wait for a response. The forest was still dark when Ronan reached Elira's cabin. No smoke rose from the chimney. The door stood slightly ajar, creaking in the wind. Inside, he found her collapsed beside her bed, burning with fever. The cursed wound had turned her leg black from ankle to knee, dark veins spreading like poison up her thigh. Ronan gathered her into his arms. She weighed almost nothing, and felt his wolf settle for the first time in days. Ours to protect. Finally. He carried her back as dawn broke, her labored breathing the only sound. At the territory border, Gareth waited with half the council. They'd known. Of course they'd known. Elder Thorn stepped forward. You've made your choice, Alpha. Now face the consequences. Name them. The right of consequence. Ancient law that forbids saving the marked for death. By bringing her back, you've broken sacred trust. The old man's smile was knife-thin. Execute her yourself and prove your strength, or forfeit your alpha claim for harboring the condemned. Murmurs rippled through the gathered wolves. Ronan felt the trap snap shut around him. They'd planned this. Let him invoke protection so they could invoke consequence. Let him think he had a choice when they'd already decided his fate. But Ronan smiled. There's a third option. I invoke the right of shield. She is under my protection until trial by combat determines her innocence or guilt. No one will champion a cripple, Gareth said. I will. The silence was absolute. You would fight for her. Elder Thorn's voice shook with something that might have been rage. Stake everything on a broken girl. Ronan looked down at Elira's unconscious face. At the courage that had driven her to attend his celebration despite everything. At the strength it took to survive what should have killed her. I already have, he said, and walked past the council into pack territory, carrying his choice. Elira woke to softness. That was wrong. Everything in her world was hard edges and rough wood, thin blankets and colder comfort. But this was silk against her skin, pillows that cradled instead of punished, warmth that didn't come from a struggling fire. She forced her eyes open and immediately regretted it. The room was too large, too fine. Tapestries on the walls, a fireplace that could swallow her entire cabin, windows that let in morning light without the grime of poverty filtering it grey. The Alpha's quarters. She was in the Alpha's quarters. Panic seized her chest. She tried to sit up and gasped as pain lanced through her leg. Different than before, sharper, like the wound had teeth and was biting deeper. Dark veins had spread up her thigh, visible against her pale skin like cracks in porcelain. Don't move. Lena appeared at her bedside, pressing her back down with gentle hands. You've been unconscious for 2 days. Your fever finally broke an hour ago. What? Elira's throat was sandpaper. What happened? Ronan happened. Lena's voice carried equal parts admiration and concern. He invoked the right of protection. Carried you back himself. Nearly started a civil war doing it. The memories filtered back slowly. The celebration. His eyes across the room. Collapsing in her cabin, certain she'd die alone. He shouldn't have. They'll destroy him for this. They are trying. Lena poured water from a pitcher, helped Elira drink. The council invoked the right of consequence. He countered with the right of shield. It's a mess of ancient laws and political posturing, but the short version is, you're his responsibility now. If you die, his claim as Alpha is forfeit. That's insane. Elira's laugh came out bitter. I'm already dying. Look at me. Lena's expression went carefully blank. About that. Old Moira examined your wound. It's not just infected, Elira. It's cursed. The word hung in the air like smoke. Cursed. Not wounded. Not broken. Cursed. What kind of curse? Nightshade binding. Blood magic from the old wars. Someone didn't just want you dead, they wanted you erased slowly, painfully. Lena's voice dropped to a whisper. The rogues that attacked your family, they were sent. This was targeted. The room tilted. Elira gripped the silk sheets hard enough to tear. Who would? Why would anyone? We don't know yet. But Ronan's investigating. Lena squeezed her hand. You're not alone in this anymore. The door opened without warning. Ronan entered like a storm contained in flesh, all controlled power and barely leashed intensity. His ice-blue eyes found Elira immediately, and something in them made her breath catch. You're awake. Not a question. A relief. I didn't ask to be saved. The words came out sharper than intended. I know. He moved closer, and Elira noticed the tension in his shoulders, the way his jaw clenched. But you're Pack. You were always Pack. The council was wrong. The council was right. Elira forced herself to meet his eyes. I'm broken. Useless. A burden you can't afford. Don't. His voice went low, dangerous. Don't speak about yourself that way. Why not? It's the truth. You risked everything for someone who can't even walk without. The words choked off as a sudden warmth bloomed in her chest. Not painful, but strange. Unfamiliar. Like something sleeping had cracked open one eye. Ronan stumbled back a step, his hand pressed to his sternum. His face went pale. What? Elira started. Oh no. Lena's whisper was horrified. Oh no, no, no. Old Moira swept into the room as if summoned, her gnarled hands already reaching for them both. She pressed 2 fingers to Elira's wrist, then Ronan's, her weathered face growing grimmer by the second. How long have you felt it? Moira demanded. Felt what? Elira's heart hammered against her ribs. Ronan spoke through gritted teeth. Since I carried her back. I thought it was just. He broke off as another wave of that strange warmth pulsed through the space between them. This time it carried pain, sharp and vicious, like claws raking his insides. He dropped to one knee with a sound that was half growl, half gasp. The mate bond. Moira's voice held no sympathy. Awakening at the worst possible moment. Of course. The words crashed into Elira like a physical blow. Mate bond. Fated mates. The thing every wolf dreamed of and half never found. And hers was activating with the one person who'd watched her be condemned. That's impossible, Elira whispered. The bond doesn't care about possibility. Moira grabbed Ronan's arm, helped him to a chair. It cares about recognition. And proximity to death often triggers dormant bonds, a last desperate attempt by fate to save what it's bound together. Can you stop it? Ronan's voice was strained. Stop a mate bond. Moira barked a laugh. I can't stop the sun from rising either. But this, she gestured between them. This isn't a normal bond. The curse is corrupting it. Elira felt it then, the wrongness underlying the warmth. Like honey mixed with poison. The bond was trying to form, but the nightshade binding was twisting it, corrupting it, turning something meant to strengthen them into a weapon. What does that mean? Lena asked what they were all thinking. Moira sat heavily on the edge of the bed. It means proximity causes Alpha Ronan pain. The closer they are, the worse it gets. For Elira, the bond amplifies the curse's psychological effects. Despair, worthlessness, self-destruction. So we separate. Ronan straightened despite the obvious cost. Keep distance between us. For how long? Moira challenged. The partial bond will deteriorate. Incomplete mate bonds don't just fade, they fester. Give it a few weeks and the separation will be as agonizing as the proximity. Give it a few months and it might kill you both. Then we complete it. Elira heard herself say. Finish the bond properly. That would kill you faster. Moira's bluntness was cruel mercy. The curse is designed to turn fated mates into each other's destruction. Completing the bond while cursed would drain your life force directly into him, burning you out in days. Maybe hours. The silence that followed was suffocating. So our choices are separate and die slowly, or bond and have her die quickly. Ronan's voice was hollow. Perfect. There's a third option. Moira stood, moved to the window. Break the curse. And how do we do that? Elira asked. You said Nightshade binding hasn't been seen since the old wars. Because the knowledge to break it died with the Moon Seers. Moira turned back to them, her ancient eyes sharp. The Seers were slaughtered in the Purge 3 generations ago. Every last one. Their libraries burned, their bloodlines ended. Then we're trapped. The despair in Elira's voice made Ronan flinch. Maybe not. Moira approached the bed slowly. The curse is blood magic. Blood magic can be unbound by the original caster, or, she paused meaningfully, or by someone with seer blood who can see the curse's structure and rewrite it from within. But all the seers are dead, Lena said. All the known seers. Moira's gaze fixed on Elira with an intensity that made her want to shrink away. Tell me, girl, did your mother ever have visions? See things before they happened? Elira's breath stopped. A memory surfaced, her mother's face going distant during a storm, whispering, "Don't go to the river tomorrow." The next day, flash floods had taken 3 wolves who ignored the warning. She sometimes knew things, Elira admitted slowly. And your grandmother? I never met her. Mother said she died when I was a baby. Said we didn't talk about her. Moira nodded as if confirming something. Your mother was hiding. Protecting you. The seer blood runs thin after generations of mixing, but it runs still. She leaned close. You're a Moon Seer, Elira. Perhaps the last one. The room spun. Elira grabbed the bed frame to anchor herself. That's impossible. I've never had visions. Never seen anything. Because the curse is suppressing it. Moira's voice gentled slightly. The Nightshade binding isn't just killing you. It's specifically designed to suppress seer abilities. Someone knew what you were and wanted you destroyed before you could awaken. Ronan stood abruptly. Then we find who cast it and make them break it. It's not that simple, Moira said. Whoever did this covered their tracks. The magic is weeks old, expertly woven. This was planned long before the rogue attack. So what do we do? Lena's voice cracked. Moira looked between Ronan and Elira. You learn to manage the corrupted bond while we search for answers. You keep her alive long enough to possibly awaken her seer blood. And you pray to whatever gods still listen that we find a solution before the curse spreads to her heart. How long? Ronan asked quietly. Weeks. Maybe a month if we're lucky. Elira laughed, a broken, desperate sound. So I'm dying anyway. Just slowly. With an audience this time. No. Ronan crossed to her in 2 strides, ignoring the pain that flared between them. He grabbed her hand, his warmth shocking against her cold skin. We find another way. We break this curse. We survive. Why? The question burst from her. Why do you even care? You let them abandon me. You stayed silent while they condemned me. Now you risk everything? Why? His ice blue eyes held hers, and for the first time, she saw past the alpha mask to the man beneath. Torn. Desperate. Determined. Because watching them take you away felt like someone carved out my chest, he said quietly. And I'm done making choices out of fear. The corrupted bond pulsed between them, warm and poisonous, promise and threat. Through it, Elira felt his sincerity, his determination, and underneath it all, something that might have been longing. She was trapped. Cursed. Bound to a man she should hate. And somehow, impossibly, she wanted to believe him. Then we fight, she whispered. His hand tightened on hers. Together. Outside the window, clouds gathered dark on the horizon, and neither of them noticed the shadow that had been listening at the door slip silently away. The pack was fracturing. Ronan could feel it in the tense silence of the morning meal, the way eyes slid away from his, the whispered conversations that died when he approached. 3 days had passed since he'd invoked the right of protection, and the pack house felt more like a powder keg than a home. He stood at the head of the great hall, watching his wolves gather for the emergency council meeting. The ancient timber beams overhead had witnessed generations of Silvermane alphas making decisions that shaped their pack's future. None of them, he suspected, had faced quite this particular brand of hell. Gareth entered last, his expression carefully neutral. but Ronan caught the gleam of satisfaction in his beater's eyes. This was what he'd been waiting for, the moment when tradition and politics would finally strangle sentiment. Alpha. Elder Thorn's voice cut through the murmurs like a blade through silk. We have gathered as you requested. Though I suspect we all know what must be discussed. Ronan remained standing, his hands clasped behind his back to hide their trembling. The corrupted mate bond pulsed with constant agony, worse now that Elira was only rooms away. His wolf, Kale, snarled against his ribs, demanding he go to her, protect her from what was coming. The right of protection was invoked lawfully, Ronan began, his voice steady despite the pain clawing through his chest. Elira is under my shield. And in doing so, you've placed the entire pack at risk. Gareth stepped forward, his voice pitched to carry to every corner of the hall. The right hasn't been used in 4 generations for a reason, Alpha. It's a relic of softer times. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the assembly. Ronan noted who nodded, who remained silent. The pack was splitting down the middle, traditionalists who saw his choice as weakness, and younger wolves who'd grown tired of the old ways. She can't even walk, another council member added, emboldened by Gareth's support. What value does she bring that justifies binding your life to hers? She fought 3 rogues alone before they crippled her, a voice rang out from the back. Myra, barely 22, pushed through the crowd. She gave us time to evacuate the children. My sister lived because of her. Is that worthless? Gareth's lip curled. Bravery without result is just failure. She killed none of them. She merely delayed the inevitable. She survived, Myra shot back. That takes more strength than you've ever. Enough. Ronan's command silenced them all. He felt Elira's consciousness brush against his through the bond. She was awake, listening from the adjoining room where Lena had insisted she rest. Her emotions bled through, anger, shame, and underneath it all, a bone-deep determination that surprised him. Elder Thorn rose, his ancient joints creaking. The council has discussed this matter extensively, Alpha. We find ourselves at an impasse. The old laws are clear, yet your invocation was technically valid. Therefore, we propose a compromise. Ronan's jaw tightened. Compromises from the council usually meant someone lost everything. You have 1 month, Thorn continued. 30 days to prove that Elira brings value to this pack that justifies the protection you've granted her. If you cannot, you will face trial for negligent leadership. And she will be exiled permanently. The unspoken threat hung heavy in the air. If Ronan faced trial, Gareth would challenge for leadership. And if Gareth won, Elira wouldn't survive long enough to reach the border. Before Ronan could respond, the door to the adjoining room swung open. Every head turned as Elira hobbled through on makeshift crutches, her face pale but set with grim determination. Lena trailed behind her, medical supplies forgotten in her shock. The room fell into stunned silence. Elira wore simple clothing that couldn't hide her injuries, the way her right leg hung useless, the dark veins of the curse visible at her collar, creeping up her neck like poisonous ivy. She met Ronan's eyes briefly, and he felt her resolve through the bond. Terror seized him. Whatever she was about to do, it would cost her. You want proof of my value? Elira's voice carried clearly despite its rasp. She turned to face the council, refusing to look weak despite leaning heavily on the crutches. Give me a task. Any task. Gareth's smile was sharp as a knife. Very well. The rogue pack that attacked you 3 weeks ago is still raiding our borders. They struck again 2 nights past, killed 4 of our scouts. Find them. Stop them. She can't even walk. Ronan's fury made his voice boom through the hall. You're asking for her execution, not her contribution. Elira's crutch hit the floor with a sharp crack, demanding attention. I can think. I was a strategist before I was a warrior. Her eyes swept the council, daring them to contradict her. My father trained me in tactics since I could read. My mother taught me to track patterns in chaos. I don't need 2 good legs for that. The room erupted in argument. Some shouted that she was being given an impossible task. Others claimed she'd never succeed, that it was a waste of time. Through it all, Gareth stood silent, his smile never wavering. Elder Thorn raised his hand for silence. The task is set. You have until the new moon, 18 days. Find the rogues. Stop the attacks. Prove your worth. Or die trying, Gareth added softly. Which seems far more likely. The council dispersed slowly, wolves clustering in groups to whisper and speculate. Ronan remained frozen, watching Elira accept the impossible burden she'd demanded. When the last council member left, he rounded on her. What were you thinking? You can barely stand, the curse is killing you, and now you've promised to hunt rogues. Elira met his glare without flinching. I was thinking that I'm tired of being pitted. I'm tired of being someone's burden. Her voice cracked slightly. I'm tired of proving I have the right to exist. You don't have to prove anything to them. Yes, I do. She hobbled closer, and despite the pain it caused them both through the corrupted bond, she didn't back away. But not for them. For myself. 3 weeks ago, they left me in the snow to die. Every day since, part of me believed they were right, that I'm worthless now, that broken things should be discarded. Her eyes glistened, but no tears fell. I need to know they were wrong. I need to know I was wrong. So I'm going to find these rogues, and I'm going to stop them, and I'm going to do it on one leg in a death curse, because if I don't, I'm just waiting to die anyway. The bond flared between them, carrying her desperation, her need to matter. Ronan felt his anger drain away, replaced by something more dangerous, respect, admiration, and the terrible certainty that he couldn't stop her without breaking something essential in her spirit. Then we do this together, he said finally. The pain. I'll endure it. His hand found hers, accepting the agony that came with the touch. You said it yourself. We're partners now. So let's catch some rogues. For the first time since she'd woken in his quarters, Elira smiled. It was small, uncertain, but real. You really are determined to destroy yourself for me. Not for you, Ronan corrected. With you. There's a difference. The subtle shift in her expression told him she understood. As they stood together in the empty council hall, hands clasped despite the curse's torture, something clicked into place. Not the mate bond, that remained corrupted, painful. But something equally important. A partnership. A choice made freely, despite everything stacked against them. Now they just had to survive it. The fever came in the night, savage and sudden. Elira thrashed in sweat-soaked sheets, her cursed wound burning black-hot beneath fresh bandages. The investigation had consumed 3 days, 3 days of maps and reports, of tracing patrol routes and interviewing survivors. 3 days of working side by side with Ronan, both of them enduring the constant agony of the corrupted bond. They'd found patterns. Too many patterns. The attacks were surgical, coordinated, nothing like the chaotic violence of true rogues. Someone was feeding information to the raiders, and they'd narrowed the suspects to 3 wolves close to the council. But now, as darkness claimed her consciousness, none of that mattered. Elira fell through layers of reality like a stone through water. The fever dream seized her with merciless claws, dragging her somewhere beyond pain, beyond the physical world. Threads of light materialized in the darkness, golden, silver, crimson, connecting people, events, moments in an intricate web that stretched in all directions. What is this? Her wolf, Sarah, stirred for the first time in weeks. Not with strength, but with desperate warning. Remember. You need to remember. The threads shifted, pulled by an invisible current, and Elira found herself standing in a memory she'd forgotten. She was 5 years old, small and frightened, watching her mother kneel before her in their old cabin. The Moon Seers live in our blood, little one, her mother whispered, her hands gentle on Elira's cheeks. We see what others cannot. Threads of fate, paths not yet chosen. But you must never tell anyone. They fear what they don't understand, and fear makes people cruel. But why do we see them, Mama? Her mother's smile was sad, ancient. Because someone has to bear the burden of knowing. Someone has to hold the weight of what could be, so others can be free to choose what will be. The memory dissolved, threads yanking Elira forward through time. She saw the night of the attack, the night that had shattered her life, but from an angle that made her blood freeze. The lead rogue moved with the practiced efficiency of a trained warrior. As he turned, moonlight caught on his hand. A ring. Silver and unmistakable, silver moon pack insignia. No. No, it can't be. The vision shifted again. A clearing in the forest, 2 weeks before the attack. Gareth stood face to face with a massive wolf she didn't recognize. His aura dripped with power and malice. Alpha energy, but foreign, wrong. Draven wants the sea air eliminated before she awakens, Gareth said, his voice carrying clearly through the vision. Your rogues were supposed to kill her cleanly. The massive wolf, Draven, she realized with horror, laughed. The girl is stronger than expected. But the curse will finish what my wolf started. She'll be dead within the month. And my reward? When the chaos comes, you'll have your throne. The old fool Ronan won't survive what's coming. The threads blazed brighter, pulling Elira through possibility after possibility. She saw herself dying a dozen different ways, fever-taken, murdered, executed. She saw Ronan falling in battle, his last word her name torn from blooded lips. She saw Silvermoon burning, pack members slaughtered, children screaming. But underneath the horror, other threads glimmered. Choices not yet made. Paths still open. She reached for them, trying to understand, trying to see how to change what seemed inevitable. The threads burned her fingers like live wires, sending information flooding through her consciousness too fast to process. This is what Mother felt. This terrible knowledge, this burden. A final vision slammed into her with devastating clarity. Gareth meeting with the 3 suspects she and Ronan had identified. Soren, one of the younger council members, accepting a leather pouch heavy with gold. The patrol route for tomorrow, Gareth said. Make sure the rogues know exactly where to strike. Elira tried to scream a warning, but she had no voice in this place of visions. The threads showed her tomorrow's attack, showed her the ambush point, showed her which wolves would die if she didn't. Elira. She woke screaming, Ronan's hands on her shoulders, his face inches from hers. The corrupted bond shrieked between them, but he didn't let go. Behind him, Moira rushed in with Lena close behind, arms full of medical supplies. The patrol, Elira gasped, her throat raw. Tomorrow morning. Eastern Ridge. It's a trap, Soren sold them out. The rogues will be waiting. Ronan's eyes widened. How do you know? I saw it. The words tumbled out, desperate and disjointed. I saw everything. Gareth meeting with Draven, the attack planned, the ring on the rogue's hand. It wasn't random. None of it was random. They wanted me dead before I could awaken. Awaken? Moira moved closer, her ancient eyes sharp with sudden understanding. Child, what exactly did you see? Elira tried to explain, the threads, the visions, her mother's hidden words. It sounded insane even to her own ears, the ravings of a fever-sick girl. But Ronan never looked away, and through the bond, she felt his absolute certainty that she was telling the truth. Moira's weathered hands began examining Elira's cursed wound with renewed intensity. The dark veins had spread further, now reaching her collarbone, creeping toward her heart. But the old healer's expression had shifted from grim resignation to something else, recognition. Moon Seers, Moira breathed. I thought the bloodline was extinct. What are Moon Seers? Ronan demanded. An ancient lineage, older than the packs themselves. Moira sat heavily on the edge of the bed. They could see the threads of fate, read the patterns of what might be. They guided our ancestors through the old wars, saved countless lives. But their power made others fearful. 3 generations ago, a coalition of alphas decided that much power couldn't be allowed to exist unchecked. They hunted the seers down, killed most of them. Elira's hands shook as the pieces fell into place. My mother. She must have hidden her heritage to protect us. And succeeded, until now. Moira's finger traced the edge of the curse mark. This curse isn't just killing you, child. It's trying to suppress your seer blood, prevent the awakening. That's why it won't heal, why conventional treatment fails. Ronan's voice went deadly quiet. Someone knew what she was. Gareth knows, Elira confirmed. I saw him. He's working with Bloodfang Alpha Draven. They want me dead before I can fully awaken, before I can use my gifts to see their plans. But you have awakened, Moira said softly. The fever, the visions, that was your blood fighting the curse, breaking through despite it. You're not just a threat to Gareth's ambitions anymore. She met Elira's eyes gravely. You're a threat to anyone who benefits from the current order. Seers can rewrite fate threads, change outcomes before they happen. In the wrong hands, or the right ones, that power could reshape pack politics entirely. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Elira felt Ronan's hand find hers, accepting the pain of the bond's corruption without hesitation. They didn't just want you dead, he said. They wanted you erased before you could become what you were meant to be. What I'm meant to be. Elira's laugh was bitter. I can barely stand. I'm dying from a curse I can't break. What good is seeing the future if I won't be alive to change it? Then we use what time we have. Ronan's grip tightened. You said you saw tomorrow's attack. We use that. We set our own trap, catch the traitors, expose the conspiracy. And if I'm wrong? If the visions were just fever dreams? You're not wrong. His certainty flowed through the bond, steadying her. I can feel it. The mate bond might be corrupted, but it lets me sense your truth. You saw what's coming. Moira stood, gathering her supplies. I'll prepare what you need for tomorrow. But Elira, each time you use your gift, it will cost you. The curse fights against your power. The more you see, the faster it spreads. Then I'll have to make each vision count. After Moira and Lena left, Elira and Ronan sat in silence, hands still clasped despite the constant burn of pain. The vision of his death haunted her, the way he'd fallen, her name on his lips. She'd seen dozens of futures in those fever-bright moments, and in so many of them, they failed. They died. The pack fell. But in others, in just a few precious threads of possibility, they survived. Together. In the vision, she said quietly, I saw you die. His jaw tightened, but he didn't pull away. Did you see how to prevent it? Not clearly. Just that we have to stay together. The moment we separate, everything falls apart. Then we don't separate. Simple. Definitive. Whatever comes, we face it as one. The corrupted bond pulsed between them, painful as always, but underneath it, just for a moment, Elira felt something else. Something warm and right and inevitable. The true mate bond, struggling to surface beneath the curse's interference. We end this together, she whispered, echoing her words from days before. This time, Ronan's response was different. He raised their joined hands, pressed a kiss to her knuckles despite the agony it cost them both. We end this together, he agreed. And then we begin something new. Outside, dawn approached. In hours, they would spring their trap, expose the traitor, and take the first real step toward unraveling the conspiracy. But for now, in the quiet darkness before the storm, they simply held on. Two broken pieces, choosing to fit together rather than shatter apart. The threads of fate shimmered in Elira's mind's eye, showing her glimpses of what might be. She reached for the brightest thread, the one where they both survived, and held it like a lifeline. Tomorrow, they would fight. Tonight, they endured. Gareth's challenge came at dawn, delivered by formal herald before the entire assembled pack. The trial of fangs, the ancient right of any beta to challenge an alpha they deemed unfit. Ronan had 3 days to prepare, and everyone knew he was already poisoned by the corrupted bond. The pack gathered in the ceremonial grounds, their faces reflecting equal parts anticipation and dread. Word of yesterday's ambush had spread quickly, how Elira's vision had led them to catch Sorn red-handed, how the traitor had confessed before Ronan executed him for treason. But instead of strengthening Ronan's position, it had pushed Gareth to desperation. You've bound yourself to unnatural power, Gareth declared, his voice carrying across the crowd. A crippled seer who poisons your judgment. The ancestors would weep to see a Silvermane Alpha so corrupted. Ronan stood silent on the Alpha's platform, his jaw tight. Elira watched from the sidelines, her crutch digging into the soft earth, hating every second of her helplessness. Through the bond, she felt his pain, not just the corruption's constant burn, but the deeper ache of knowing this fight could cost him everything. The next 3 days passed in agonizing tension. Ronan trained despite the pain, his movements slower than they should be, his reactions dulled by the bond's interference. Elira watched him push through exercises that left him gasping, and felt each blow as if it landed on her own flesh. Lena found her on the second day, face grim with news. Gareth's been dosing himself with blood rage root. It'll make him stronger, faster, but unstable. That's illegal in trials. Only if someone can prove it before the fight starts. Lena's hand squeezed Elira's shoulder. He's planning to kill Ronan, not just defeat him. I've seen him training. He's not holding anything back. That night, Elira pored over her mother's hidden journals, desperate for anything that might help. The entries spoke of seer abilities she hadn't yet mastered, reading deeper threads, manipulating probability, and something else that made her breath catch. Pain transference. A seer can temporarily take another's suffering into themselves, bearing the burden so the other may act freely. The cost is dear. It accelerates whatever ails the seer, burning through their life force. Use only when no other path remains. Her hands trembled as she read the ritual instructions. It could work. She could take the bond's corruption into herself, give Ronan a chance to fight at full strength. But the curse was already spreading. This would kill her within days, maybe hours. The morning of the trial dawned cold and clear. The pack formed a massive circle in the ceremonial ring, generations of tradition pressing down like physical weight. Ronan stood on one side, stripped to the waist, his body marked with the ritual symbols of challenge. Across from him, Gareth mirrored his stance, muscles coiled with barely contained violence. Elder Thorn raised his staff. By ancient right, Beta Gareth has challenged Alpha Ronan for leadership of Silvermoon Pack. The trial will continue until submission, exile, or death. Let the ancestors bear witness. The staff struck earth, and they charged. Gareth fought like a man possessed, every strike meant to maim or kill. His eyes held the telltale glaze of blood rage, enhanced strength at the cost of control. Ronan met him with tactical precision, using skill where Gareth used raw power. But the corrupted bond was a chain around Ronan's throat. Each of Gareth's blows that landed sent feedback through the connection, making Elira gasp from the sidelines. She felt his ribs crack, tasted blood in her mouth though she hadn't been struck. Through their bond, she sensed his strength failing. Gareth sensed it too. His cruel smile widened as he pressed his advantage, driving Ronan back toward the circle's edge. You chose weakness, old friend. Now let me show you the price. He lunged for a killing strike, claws aimed at Ronan's throat. Elira closed her eyes and reached for the threads only she could see. Her mother's journal had been explicit about the ritual. She'd memoized every word, every gesture. Now, as Ronan's life hung by a thread thinner than spider silk, she made her choice. Forgive me, she thought through the bond, knowing he'd feel what she was about to do. Her lips moved in the ancient words, her hands tracing symbols in the air that only seer eyes could perceive. The corrupted bond blazed in her consciousness, a writhing mass of dark energy that connected them. She reached for it, grabbed hold with every scrap of all she possessed, and pulled. The pain hit her like lightning. Every ounce of agony the bond had been inflicting on Ronan rushed into her body in a single devastating wave. The curse's corruption, the mate bond's twisted nature, the constant burn, all of it flooded her nervous system at once. Elira collapsed, her crutch clattering away, her teeth sinking through her lip to keep from screaming. The dark veins of the curse spread visibly, racing up her neck and across her jaw. Blood trickled from her nose. But in the ring, Ronan suddenly moved like quicksilver. The difference was instantaneous. Without the bond's interference, his full alpha power surged free. He twisted away from Gareth's strike with impossible speed, countered with a blow that sent his beta staggering. Gareth's eyes widened in shock and rage. What? Ronan didn't give him time to finish. He moved with the deadly grace that had earned him the alpha position, every strike precise and devastating. The blood rage made Gareth strong but predictable. Ronan exploited every opening, every overextension. Within minutes, Gareth was on his knees, blood streaming from a dozen wounds, Ronan's clawed hand at his throat. Yield, Ronan commanded, his voice carrying to every corner of the circle. Never, Gareth spat. Kill me or I'll. You what? Challenge again. Ronan's grip tightened. I could kill you by right of trial. The ancestors would bless it. His eyes swept the assembled pack. But I'm not my predecessors. I don't rule through fear. He released Gareth, stepping back. You're exiled. Cross our borders again, and mercy won't be offered twice. The pack erupted in shocked murmurs. Gareth stumbled to his feet, hatred burning in his eyes. You'll regret this weakness, Ronan. When Draven comes for her, he gestured at Elira's collapsed form, you'll wish you'd been strong enough to let her die. Two wolves escorted Gareth away. The crowd's attention shifted to their alpha, who hadn't moved, hadn't acknowledged his victory. He stood frozen, face turned toward where Elira lay convulsing. Then he ran. Ronan reached her in seconds, gathering her into his arms. Her skin burned with fever, the curse now covering half her face in black veins. Her breathing came in shallow gasps. "What did you do?" he demanded, though he already knew. Through the bond, now crystal clear, no longer corrupted, he felt everything. Her choice, her sacrifice, the ritual that was killing her. "Gave you a chance," she managed. Moira pushed through the crowd, took one look at Elira, and her face went ashen. "Get her to the healing room. Now." They carried her through the parting crowd. In the healing room, Moira worked with desperate efficiency while Ronan refused to leave Elira's side. "How long?" he asked, voice hollow. "Days. Maybe hours." Moira's hands never stopped moving. The ritual accelerated everything. "The curse is consuming her. Then we break it. Now. Whatever it takes." Moira met his eyes. "There's a possibility. The curse is blood magic. It can be unbound by blood magic. But it requires either the original caster, or..." She hesitated. "Or what?" "Or someone with seer blood voluntarily accepting the curse, understanding it completely, and choosing to rewrite it from the inside." Her voice dropped. "It's never been done successfully. It would require her to embrace the very thing killing her, to see it clearly enough to change it. Most seers go mad trying. The rest simply die." Elira's eyes fluttered open. "Then, it's my choice to make." "No." Ronan's hand found hers. "We find another way." A howl split the night air, savage and close. Then another. Then a dozen more, a chorus of threat that made the windows rattle. A young scout burst through the door, blooded and terrified. "Alpha. Bloodfang wolves on the border. Hundreds of them. And they are not attacking, they are waiting." "Waiting for what?" "Their Alpha is here. Draven. He sent a message." The scout's voice shook. "He demands you surrender the seer, or he'll burn Silvermoon to ash. You have until dawn to decide." The room fell silent except for Elira's labored breathing. Outside, war drums began to beat, a countdown to impossible choices. Ronan looked at Elira, then at the window where firelight from Bloodfang torches painted the sky orange. His pack, his mate, his duty, all balanced on a knife's edge. "Let me go," Elira whispered. "Save them." His response was immediate and fierce. "I don't sacrifice Pack. You are Pack." He stood, alpha power radiating from every line of his body. "We fight." Draven's army encircled Silvermoon like a noose. 200 Bloodfang wolves against their 150, and half of those questioned whether their Alpha's obsession with a dying girl was worth their lives. The war council gathered in the pack house as midnight approached, tension thick enough to choke on. Maps covered every surface, marked with defensive positions and enemy movements. Through the windows, Bloodfang campfires dotted the darkness like malevolent stars. Elder Thorn slammed his palm on the table. "This is madness, Ronan. One life for the pack, it's simple mathematics." "It's not mathematics." Myra stood from where she'd been studying the maps, several young wolves rising with her. "It's principle. We don't abandon our own. Not anymore." "Pretty principles won't stop Draven from slaughtering us all," another council member argued. Ronan remained focused on the map, his tactical mind working through scenarios. "We use the terrain. The eastern ridge narrows their approach, and the ravine to the south." "What reinforcements?" someone interrupted. "Who's coming to help us?" The brutal truth hung in the silence. They were alone. A crutch tapped against the floor. Every head turned as Elira hobbled into the room, Lena supporting her. She looked like a corpse walking, skin grey, the curse's black veins covering half her face, her breathing labored. But her eyes burned with fierce determination. "I can help," she said. Scattered laughter met her words, cruel and dismissive. But Ronan moved to her side, steadying her with a hand at her back. "How?" he asked simply. "I can see their attack patterns. The threats show me where they'll strike before they do." She swayed, and Lena caught her. "Every choice creates ripples. I can read them." "You can barely stand," Elder Thorn said. "What good are visions if you collapse before?" Then prop me up, Elira interrupted. Give me a chair, a wall, whatever. I'll do this lying down if I have to. Ronan studied her face, felt her resolve through their bond. The pain transference had cleared the corruption, leaving their connection pure and strong. Through it, he sensed both her desperation and her certainty. Show me, he said. For the next 3 hours, they planned. Elira closed her eyes and reached for the threads, gasping as each vision took its toll. The curse spread further with every use of her power, across her chest, down her arms. But she guided their defensive positions with uncanny precision, predicting Bloodfang's likely strategies. They'll feint east, strike west, she said, her voice growing weaker. Draven's not subtle. He'll try to overwhelm through sheer force, but he'll keep his elite guard in reserve. He's not here just for conquest, he wants me alive. Ronan traced new positions on the map. If we concentrate here and here, using the terrain to multiply our numbers, we might hold, Lena finished. For a while. Dawn brought the attack. Bloodfang wolves poured through the trees like a living tide, their howls shaking the earth. Elira watched from the pack house, propped in a chair by the window, her eyes tracking movements that matched her visions perfectly. Eastern flank, now, she called out to the runner stationed beside her. The young wolf sprinted to relay the message. Silver Moon defenders shifted position moments before the Bloodfang feint materialized. They met the attack with coordinated fury, and the initial push broke against their lines. But Draven had numbers. For every enemy that fell, 2 more seemed to take their place. Ronan fought at the front, a whirlwind of alpha power and controlled rage. His wolves rallied around him, fighting with desperate courage. Through the bond, Elira felt every wound he took, tasted blood that wasn't in her mouth. Another vision struck her like a hammer. Lena, they're sending a strike team. For me. They'll come through the East Passage in 3 minutes. Lena's face hardened. Then we move you. No. Elira's hand shot out, gripping Lena's wrist. That's what they expect. We stay. We prepare. You can't fight. I can see. Elira's eyes gleamed with seer light. Sometimes that's enough. They barricaded the room quickly, Lena positioning herself by the door with a silver blade. When the 3 Bloodfang warriors burst through, Elira called out their movements before they made them. Left. His going left. Lena dodged, countered. Her blade found flesh. Behind you, drop now. Lena hit the floor as claws whistled overhead. They fought through foresight rather than strength, Elira's visions guiding every parry, every strike. When the last attacker fell, Lena stood gasping and blooded, staring at Elira in awe. That was exhausting. Elira slumped in her chair, the curse now covering her chest completely, creeping toward her heart. Each vision cost her, burning through what little life she had left. But outside, the tide was turning. Elira's strategic positioning had given Silver Moon the advantage, and Bloodfang's superior numbers couldn't overcome tactical precision. Then, at midday, the fighting stopped. A horn sounded, the call for parley. Ronan wiped blood from his face as a massive figure emerged from the Bloodfang lines, walking toward the defensive perimeter under a truce flag. Draven was ancient and terrifying, his scarred face speaking of centuries of violence. Power radiated from him like heat from a forge, an alpha who'd held his position through pure brutality. Ronan Silvermane, Draven's voice rumbled. Your stubbornness will kill everyone you love. How many more must die for your pride? Better death than Dishna. Ronan stood his ground, though several of his wolves lay dead behind him. Pretty words. Draven's smile was cruel. Let's see if your pack agrees. He gestured, and Bloodfang warriors dragged forward a group of bound prisoners, Silver Moon wolves caught during border patrols. Among them, Elira recognized faces. And children. 3 children, none older than 10, terror bright in their eyes. The sea or the innocents, Draven said calmly. You have until sunset to decide. For every hour you delay, I kill 1 child. Their blood will stain your honor bright red. The words hit like physical blows. Ronan stood frozen, every principle he held sacred crumbling against this impossible choice. I don't want just any seer, Draven continued conversationally. I want her specifically. The last Moon Seer heir. Her blood will make me unkillable, immune to silver, to age, to any weapon. I'll drain every drop slowly, harvesting the power your ancestors tried to exterminate. He turned to leave, then paused. Oh, and before you consider any heroic rescue attempts, Gareth has been most helpful in providing information about your defenses. He's quite eager to see you broken. The revelation that Gareth had joined Bloodfang after his exile sent murmurs through the assembled wolves. The former beater had sold them out completely. Draven departed, leaving his ultimatum hanging in the air like smoke. The Silver Moon wolves gathered in tense clusters, arguing in fierce whispers. Ronan stood apart, his shoulders rigid with the weight of impossible leadership. Elira heard them through the window, voices rising in anger and fear. He's right. We can't trade children for pride. But if we give her up, we survive. That's what matters. Even Ronan's supporters wavered, torn between loyalty and love for their young. Elder Thorn's voice cut through. The needs of the many, Alpha. You know this. You've always known this. Elira dragged herself to her feet, using the wall for support. Every movement sent agony through her curse-ridden body. But she'd made her decision. She found Ronan on the terrace, staring at the Bloodfang camp where tiny figures moved around the prisoners. His hands gripped the railing hard enough to crack wood. Don't, he said without turning. Whatever you're about to say, don't. I'm going to him. No. Ronan, listen. I said no. He spun, and she saw tears tracking through the blood on his face. I won't trade you. I won't sacrifice you to save others. That's not who we are. It's exactly who we are. Elira moved closer despite the effort it cost. You said it yourself, I'm Pack. And Pack protects the young, even at cost of the old. You're 23 years old. I'm dying anyway. Her hand found his cheek. The curse is at my heart, Ronan. I have hours, maybe less. At least let those hours mean something. There has to be another way. There isn't. Through their bond, she let him feel her certainty, her peace with this choice. But I'm not going as a sacrifice. I'm going as bait. His eyes sharpened. What? Moira said the curse can be rewritten from the inside, by someone with seer blood who truly understands it. Elira's voice grew stronger. I've been seeing the threads for days now, watching how the curse interacts with my power. When Draven tries to drain me, I'll be connected to him. Close enough to redirect the curse. It'll kill you. I'm already dead. She smiled, sad but genuine. But maybe I can take him with me. Maybe I can save the children, save the Pack, save you. Her thumb brushed away his tears. This is my choice, Ronan. The first real choice I've made since they left me in the snow. Please. Let me have it. The bond between them pulsed with shared anguish. Through it, she felt his every objection, his desperate need to protect her, his love so fierce it burned. And underneath it all, his knowledge that she was right. I hate this, he whispered. I know. If there was any other way. There isn't. The sun began its descent toward the horizon. Time was running out. Ronan pulled her close, ignoring the pain of contact, the curse's corruption that even their purified bond couldn't completely erase. Then we do this right. You don't walk into that camp alone. Elira walked into the Bloodfang camp with her head high and her leg dragging behind her. Let them see her broken. Let them underestimate. It would be the last mistake they ever made. Torches lit the clearing where Draven waited, their flames casting dancing shadows across his scarred face. His wolves formed a circle, blocking any escape. At the center stood an ancient stone altar, covered in runes that made Elira's seer blood recoil. The cripple comes to save the day, Gareth's voice dripped with mockery. He stood at Draven's right hand, his exile forgotten in service to a new master. Elira ignored him, her eyes locked on Draven. You want my power. Here I am. Draven circled her like a predator, satisfaction rolling off him in waves. Such courage. Such waste. You could have lived decades more if you'd simply hidden what you are. He gestured to the altar. But the Moon Seers were always too noble for their own good. That's why they are extinct. Not quite extinct, Elira said as two Bloodfang warriors chained her to the altar. The metal bit into her wrists, inscribed with binding magic that made her curse flare with fresh agony. Soon enough. Draven produced a ceremonial blade, its edge gleaming with malice. The ritual will drain every drop of seer blood from your veins. Your power, your gift, your very essence, all of it will become mine. I'll be unstoppable. Unkillable. He positioned the blade over her arm, preparing the first cut. Your precious Alpha will watch you die knowing he chose wrong. That your sacrifice brought him nothing but grief. Elira met his eyes and smiled. You're wrong about one thing. What's that? I'm not the sacrifice. You are. Confusion flickered across Draven's face. Then the blade bit into her flesh, and the ritual began. Blood flowed across ancient runes, activating magic that had lain dormant for generations. Draven's eyes blazed with triumph as he felt power beginning to transfer. But Elira wasn't fighting, she was watching. Observing. Understanding. She closed her eyes and reached for the threads. They blazed around her, brilliant and terrible, every possible future, every choice, every consequence. The curse writhed inside her like a living thing, black and hungry. But now, connected to Draven through the ritual, she could see its true nature. It wasn't meant to kill. It was meant to test. The Moon Seers had created it as a final trial for their A's, a crucible that would either destroy the unworthy or awaken the truly powerful. Only someone who could accept their brokenness, who could choose sacrifice without bitterness, could unlock its true purpose. Elira had passed the test. The curse inverted. Draven's scream split the night. Instead of draining Elira's power, the ritual became a conduit, and the curse flooded into him. His own darkness, his centuries of cruelty and violence, turned inward and began consuming him from the inside. What did you do? He tried to break the connection, but the ritual held fast. I understood it, Elira said, her voice echoing with seer power. The curse was never the enemy. It was the key. Silver light erupted from her body, and the chains shattered. The dark veins covering her skin began to recede, the curse's energy redirecting entirely into Draven. He aged before their eyes, decades passing in seconds as the stolen years returned to their rightful owners. Chaos erupted. Bloodfang wolves scattered as their alpha collapsed, withering. Gareth lunged at Elira, murder in his eyes. Ronan hit him like an avalanche. The Silver Moon Alpha had been waiting at the clearing's edge with his strike team, and now they poured in. The fight was brief and brutal. Bloodfang warriors, seeing their leader destroyed, surrendered or fled. Gareth fought with desperate rage, but Ronan's fury was colder and more deadly. Within moments, the former beater lay broken at his alpha's feet. Mercy, Gareth gasped. You gave me mercy before. That was before you sold out children. Ronan's voice held no warmth. Before you chose power over Pack. You get no second chances. The killing blow was swift. Final. Ronan turned from Gareth's corpse and ran to Elira. She'd collapsed beside the altar, the curse finally broken but the damage done. Her breathing came in shallow gasps, her skin still grey despite the curse's departure. No, he whispered, gathering her into his arms. No, you did it. You won. You don't get to leave now. Through their bond, he felt her slipping away. The curse might be gone, but it had taken too much. Her heart struggled to beat, her lungs barely drew air. Moira pushed through the crowd, her face grim. Get her back to the healing room. Now. The journey back to Silver Moon territory passed in a blur. Ronan carried Elira the entire way, refusing to let anyone else touch her. She drifted in and out of consciousness, the mate bond flickering like a candle in the wind. In the healing room, Moira worked with desperate efficiency. But even her skill had limits. The curse is gone, she said finally. But her body, it's been through too much. No. Ronan knelt beside the bed, taking Elira's hand. The bond between them pulsed, clear and pure now, but fading. There has to be something. Alpha strength can be shared through a complete mate bond, Moira said slowly. But it's dangerous. You could burn yourself out, and it might not be enough. Do it. Ronan. I said do it. His eyes blazed with alpha command. She gave me her strength when I needed it. Now I give her mine. He closed his eyes and reached through their bond, offering everything, his life force, his power, his very essence. Take what you need, he whispered. I'm strong enough for both of us. The bond flared like a star. Power flowed from him to her, not healing magic but pure determination. The refusal to let go. The choice to stand together even against death itself. Elira's eyes fluttered open. "You're such an idiot." His laugh was half sob. "I've been told." "My leg," she said quietly, looking at the ruined limb. "It's still broken. Still useless." "I know. I'll never be the warrior I was." "I know. Be something else. Be yourself. Be mine." The mate bond settled into place, complete and unbreakable. Her wolf, Sarah, finally whole again, rose to meet his kale with joy. The connection blazed between them, perfect and eternal. 3 months later, Elira stood on the pack house terrace, leaning on her carved cane. Below, Silver Moon wolves gathered for the council meeting, the first under their new structure. Elder Thorn had been stripped of authority for his role in the conspiracy. The new council included wolves chosen by merit rather than age, young and old working together to rebuild what had been broken. Myra approached, now serving as head of security. "Thank you, Luna, for showing us that strength doesn't mean unbroken." Elira smiled. She'd spent the past months training the pack in strategy, her seer gift used to plan defenses and guide hunts. Her visions had made Silver Moon prosperous and safe in ways brute strength never could. Ronan found her as sunset painted the sky gold and crimson. His arms wrapped around her from behind, his chin resting on her shoulder. "Regrets?" he asked. She looked at her cane, at the scar tissue visible at her collar where the cows had marked her. At the pack below, thriving under their combined leadership. At him. "Only that I didn't let myself hope sooner." "They abandoned you," he said softly. "You didn't." She turned in his arms. "And neither did I. Not in the end." Their silhouettes merged against the sunset, two broken pieces that had chosen to fit together rather than shatter apart. Imperfect. Scarred. Unbreakable. And finally, completely, home. Thank you for reading They Abandoned the Crippled Luna. If this story of strength, sacrifice, and second chances touched your heart, please. Books follow for more werewolf romance stories with powerful heroines and complex heroes. Red Heart # like and share to help others discover Elira and Ronan's journey. Speech balloon comment below. What was your favorite moment? Team Elira or Team Ronan? Bell turn on notifications so you never miss a new chapter or story. Sparkles save this post to reread whenever you need a reminder that being broken doesn't mean being weak.